Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khush aamdeed, ji aaya nu, goeiemorgen.
Bakhair agale, ni hao, tune shumme, washmale, ohio gonzaimes, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal, hale shuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabia, balli kare aaya. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into PTV World. You watching World this morning alongside the very fantastic, the very amazing, the very superb, the amazing superstar, ladies and gentlemen, Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan. Hello, Shiza. How are you doing today?
I think I'm doing better now. Thank you so much
Wow,
for
that's
that.
wonderful.
What about you, though?
Well, I think I'm feeling great as well. Just like any other day, I'm thankful that I'm not wearing a suit. And I feel very comfortable in Shalwar Kameez. It's Friday today, ladies and gentlemen, and we want each and every one of you, for all of those people who are watching or who are glued to their television screens in 46 different countries, please make sure that you remember us in your prayers.
Absolutely. Juma Mubarak to everyone out there as well. And so here's the thing. I'm really excited about this Friday specifically because, well, number one, of course, weekend, we're heading into it.
Yeah.
I have no work on these weekends, this weekend, so, well, super excited.
Wow.
But the better part is after so many weeks, actually,
Yes.
we are going to finally see my parents-in-law.
Wow.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Because we were trying to sort of quarantine ourselves. We had been exposed to people who had contracted the
Okay.
virus.
That's
So I feel like we're safe now and really excited about it. So what are your plans for the weekend?
Well, I think,
I think you're actually serving the nation in the weekend as well.
Exactly. I'm going to do so, but before I move on to what I'm doing, I'm actually going to come back to where you said that it's good enough that you're actually finally going to go and see your in-laws as well. But this is a kind of a comment which you really do not get to hear quite a lot, that somebody is happy to see their in-laws. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, to come across like that, but yes, this is a social norm over here in Pakistan. Whenever you speak about in-laws, I'm glad that that you're actually going to inspire a lot of people that this is how you really need to speak about in-laws. I'm proud of you. Touch wood as well, ladies and gentlemen. But other than that, I think I'm feeling great as well. Alhamdulillah, LPL is on, and thanks to Dr. Noman, after Allah Almighty as well, that he's actually given me this amazing series to cover. So I'll be doing that. I'll be on PTV Sports, ladies and gentlemen. So if you miss me a lot, what you can do is probably tune into PTV Sports today at 2:30 p.m. And I'll be right in front of you, and in the evening probably, ladies and gentlemen, as well. So yes, I'll be doing that, and I'm very happy that my weekends are busy as well. So I think that I'm just going to work over the weekend.
Well, that's pretty. That's pretty.
What
I
about
hope
you?
have a good time. I just told you, but I actually have something to share
Cute
on a
to
lighter
share.
note. Cute, actually,
Yes,
it is
go
really
ahead.
cute. So I came across it probably a day before yesterday. And so a 7-year-old girl in Philippines,
Yeah.
right, living with her grandma for that period of time. Maybe she was babysitting her.
Yeah, okay.
So they're home alone and want to order food because there's nothing to eat at home. And the grandma tells her, okay, why don't you go on the app and order some food? And she
Panda app.
goes on,
Yeah,
she goes on the app and orders something. And after like a minute or two, the order was not placed. Something wrong with the connection.
Okay.
Internet services,
Yeah.
whatever. So she presses the order for 40 times because the order was not being placed. And
Yes.
the next time after the 40 times, well, the order was finally placed. And after half an hour or so, 42 riders all together come outside her house with
That's
the
a
same
nightmare.
food because
Yeah.
she accidentally ordered the same food. And unfortunately, they just had money for one meal. So the sweet neighbors, what they did, they knew the situation of the family as well, and they understood that it was an honest mistake. So all of them came and bought one meal each, and I think it was a sweet time for all of them.
Yes, it
and
is.
a lot of people might have also learned from
And
the
this
mistake.
is when you get to know that all your neighbors are good people, ladies
Exactly.
and gentlemen, and I think that's the kind of neighborhood you want.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing, and that is that imagine that we live in a world where it's technology everywhere. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about applications knowing where we might probably be, and somewhat one way or the other, people do say that there's an infringement of privacy as well.
Of course.
But thinking about all of that, I think that this Panda app should have been so wise that the Panda app should have actually intimidated all of those
Right.
people out there, or intimated them that all these 40 riders are actually going to the same place. So I think that they would have saved all of that chaos as well, and the neighbors might not have to come out as well if the application was this smart.
Yes.
Which is why, ladies and gentlemen, it is for the people to be smart and think good about themselves.
Absolutely. And Shazad, you know what? Actually, I'm going to build up a little on that.
Sure.
So I was reading, especially during this pandemic, there has been a lot of reservations by the daily users about their privacy, because everything actually moved online, be it students, right? Even their own teachers were sort of suggesting them apps, free apps especially in terms of education and whatnot. Everything got online. For the employees, some were laid off, yes, and the rest had to work from home.
Yes.
So in this situation, there were a lot of, I want to say, laymen who probably did not understand in detail how to what extent they should be sharing their information, their personal information with apps that they're using. Thus, they had to face a lot of difficulty and they felt breached. I mean, of course. And early this year as well, the employees of H&M, such a popular brand, right?
Yes.
They sued H&M because they felt like their personal data was being not violated, but the company itself had acquired a lot of personal data from the employees without even asking them. And they, well, didn't feel good and they were sued for $35.2 million.
Wow, I think we should have been an employee as well.
Well, I hope so, but I wouldn't like someone actually taking that information on me. But Shahzad, you know what, this is where a lot of questions actually come in. We talk about data privacy, you know, because everyone and everything is on the internet now. We always say public sphere is now the cybersphere. But what are our rights? Do we really have the right to that kind of privacy?
Oh, well, speaking about Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we're very new to this platform, and you know, this is for the very first time that we're actually going to talk about this as well. We're going to talk about data privacy, and since you mentioned that, you know, you really do not want any other brand out there to know your personal details, but believe me, you know, there are a lot of brands who actually know your personal details, and they even know what you're doing at this point of time, and they even know how to modify your behavior, and they even know how to have an impact on your impulse.
I don't
so
like
imagine that, okay, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're very lucky. Let me just introduce the guests and get started with the conversation.
Let's do it.
Today we are very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who actually happens to be an expert on artificial intelligence and how you can secure your data. He's an engineer. I'm lucky to call him my friend as well because we lived together for 5 or 6 years in Karachi. Then he moved on to Silicon Valley and he's doing a wonderful job over there. He's one of those people who's actually founded their own IT company, and mashallah, you know, I think it's success written all over him as well, alhamdulillah. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, the right person to talk about data privacy and what can actually go wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the one and only Mr. Ahmed Talha Khan. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Walaikum salam, Shahzad. Thanks for the introduction. I think
wonderful. You truly deserve that, and thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. So I'm going to take you back in time where it was me and you. We were watching this social dilemma film together. It was a documentary, and they almost, you know, all the ex-employees from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram were like that they have these avatars of ours made right in front of them, and they have a constant check, constant eye on us that what kind of activities do we indulge ourselves into, who are the people who live nearby as well, because as soon as I'm going to see somebody, I'm going to go back home, I'm going to get a friend suggestion, and hey, it's the right person, and we do not have any mutuals, and you do get scared a lot as well. So first of all, before we get into this, what is data? And does it belong to us or does it belong to the company?
Right. So that's an amazing question. So thanks. I think first of all, we need to understand that with time, in the last 10 years, as technology has evolved and all these software technology companies, Facebooks and the Twitters of the world have come up, the world is very integrated, and all of your time is being spent online. In the next 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of your businesses and social interactions are going to move towards all this. Now, what data means, so generally I think we need to understand data doesn't only mean your name and your date of birth, and it basically means all of your tracking, all of your search histories, activities that you're doing, all of your buying purchases and history of that. So absolutely, the documentary, I think that sheds light on where this is going. So the term being used is, let's say, a surveillance capitalism on this, or data brokerages. Now, what that means is that all these software companies, they're tracking us a lot. I mean, they might say on the face that they're not, but there is a concept of cookie dropping, which you can do on your browsers. So whenever you are searching something on Google or Facebook, as you said, Shahzad, that you would have seen that when you're talking about something, generally the ads pop up, you know, and the explanation is that data about yourself and your history is being put together by very intelligent computer software algorithms. We call it machine learning or artificial intelligence. And they're basically building a virtual self of you. And so the algorithms have evolved to such an extent that they understand where do you go, where do you eat, all of that. So I think that is the entirety of data. So it's not just your name and everything.
All right, adding to that as well, so people, again, employees who are now working from home, had a reservation that their productivity was, of course, being monitored by the companies through Office 365, whatnot. They claim that this is data privacy, violation of data privacy as well. Is it though?
So when organizations actually monitor the performance of their employees, that generally does not come under privacy.
Right.
What we are talking about is the companies that own your data. So let's say all of us use Facebook. Let's use the example of Facebook. Facebook contains, now they are saving all of that data.
Yeah. Right.
Now when we talk about privacy, generally it means the data that is sitting within Facebook and Google, how do they protect that data?
Yeah.
And what are your rights on data? So I think one very important thing that we need to consider is, so the Constitution of Pakistan, even not just across the world, it recognizes privacy as a basic human right.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And just about like 15 years ago, privacy was generally limited to your physical privacy.
Yeah.
Now with the new concepts and new models, privacy, now your data is your data. I mean, it's not Facebook's data. They're just collecting it by definition. So it's Shehzad's data, it's your data, or it's my data. And we own the rights. And I think that's the movement that is happening across the world to educate people and to provide legislation. So the governments are working to provide legislation in order to protect that data.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Shehzad, I know I'm taking a lot of time, but again, I have so many questions.
It's all right, yes.
So taking you back to where you said that they gather data through cookies as well. So whenever I do open, sometimes, of course, when I do open something, there's only two options: accept cookies or learn more. So if I press learn more, I'm still not taken to the option no, right? I still have to accept it. And I don't have the stamina to go to the terms and policies. So where do I go with that?
No, that's an amazing observation that you did. So this is the concept of consent, basically. So you would have noticed that you know these pop-ups have started appearing just in the last 6 to 8 months. And basically what this is because something called GDPR. So the European Union passed something called General Data Protection Rights.
Yes.
GDPR, yeah. So now they passed that legislation, and what that asks is that it says that you have to take consent from users.
Okay.
Now the problem is if you don't want to do the consent, those things are buried deep down in documentation and pages of legal lingo which you have to sift through. And the problem is right now, since this movement is starting and it's a budding movement, the legislation right now is not at the point where it can make it easier for the common man to actually go and say, no, don't use my data.
Because
so
you
are
are
absolutely right.
To be honest, at the first step, we don't understand how to go about it.
Yes, exactly. So I think work is being done, especially let's say Europe is spearheading this effort. Even United States is lagging behind, and our neighbors, India have stepped up, Brazil have stepped up. So I think, yeah, it needs legislation, it needs time. But right now it's complex.
You know, we will talk about that where we are in this particular matter as well. But before we speak about this, towards the end, I will definitely ask you that, how to go about it. But I think as a matter of fact, the point is for all our viewers to understand, first of all, what is GDPR? We need to talk about that as well. And the other thing is, what can possibly go wrong if they have our data? Because we use their applications for free all day long. We're putting check-ins, we're putting all the pictures we want. We're making sure that our message is getting across. So they're facilitating us, even if they are keeping our data. What's wrong with that?
No, that's very important, Shehzad. So generally, when we say they're monitoring, we try to think that, okay, hey, maybe they're just giving us ads.
Yeah.
But that's not the serious bit. Fine, maybe they give you an ad to buy something, although that's suspicious. But the problem is much more worse. The problem comes when money, so now advertisement, everything, this model is fueled by advertisement.
Yeah.
So now when you can pay money to actually change things, so now what you alluded to at the start is changing behaviors of people. So now we're talking about social engineering. So companies can pay money in order to direct your decision making or direct your thinking in a certain way.
So they're modifying our behavior.
Yes. So a very good example of this is very recent right now. There's a big debate going on in the United States that the 2016 elections that were won by Mr. President Donald Trump were influenced by Russian government, where they hacked into the systems and they socially engineered people through their posts and ads to actually vote for that.
And they're saying the same for Joe Biden as well.
Yeah, so that's true. So it's not just politics, it's about children. So now when it comes to young children, it becomes really bad. I mean, because the problem is, so you have cyberbullying, you have all kinds of cyber terrorism going around.
Yep.
One extreme example is that you would remember this app that came out, Face app, just a while back. I think the entire world accepted it without actually reading through the notices. When you install that app, it used to show you 20 years, right? It would show you an older self of you. Everybody was just taking pictures and putting it on. Turns out that it was a Russian company, and they put out the app for free. Nothing is for free. They put it out. So what was happening is that algorithms were training themselves on your pictures and my pictures, and you were giving consent when you installed that app that, hey, you can use all of my gallery. Now imagine, yes,
I hate that part.
Millions of people in the world installing that. So now they get a data set which is billions, right? Yeah. And an extreme example of bad usage of this data you asked, Shahzad, is something called deep fakes.
Okay.
Now, your computer animation and graphics have come to that level where you would have seen edited videos. Okay. Now, deep fake means it would be such real videos learned from your facial behaviors.
Oh, right, the one
so I could paint your face on top of another body, okay, and actually make the video real that even other computer algorithms cannot detect whether it's real.
Somebody posted my face on a lady's body.
Yes.
That was very disturbing.
No, I think this is very disturbing. So you could be put into bad situations, not just from a legal perspective, but I mean, look at the worst case from content pornography is one very bad case of this.
Exactly.
And so data is not just your name and your date of birth. It's your actions, it's your pictures that matters a lot.
Right, and this is what, this is where the actually ethical dilemma of social engineering comes in as well. But now, talking about this makes me remember one or two episodes from Black Mirror or the Community series as well, where everyone is on the app. Everyone is actually an app, and people rate you on that, and people actually interact through that.
I like the way you were thinking. Everybody is an app. Wow.
That is how the episode shows, I mean, more or less, right? So, so if I did sign up for something, not actually sign up, downloaded something, what amount of my information will be visible to you as a user of the app as well?
So generally, people cannot see each other's information. So that's not the problem. The problem is the companies that own all of that data from millions of people. Now, what happens is that they sell that data. They lease that data to other companies. There are hundreds of companies. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the data brokerage. And it gets sold to advertisers. So you see very targeted ads. And with time, this is just going to increase. But the problems are not sharing between us. That's a security problem. Where you say whether my data can be breached and be available to anybody else. Right now, I think the focus we are trying to do is on privacy. The privacy of data owned by these companies. And
so people do not have that sort of power or leverage to actually hack into other people's
But if they are marketeers,
that's a security problem, yes. Now, we are saying is, let's say, provided that security is there, companies maintain data and they don't lose data to somebody else. How are they responsibly using it? Because at the end of the day, it's a human right. My data is my data.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good, and everybody knows that that something which is mine needs to be mine as well. Now, I think we need to come down to the point that, God forbid, if there is a breach in the data, and that concerns me because it was my data with that company as well, what's going to happen? And not just that, I think for the better understanding of all our audiences out there as well, what is this GDPR law and what does it entail? I think everybody needs to know so that people over here in Pakistan should start working on it. And then I want to come back to the behavior modification point of view as well, because for all of that, what we are doing on internet, it might not be us, it's just them making sure that our impulse is going to make us click.
Right. No. So GDPR is a legislation recently passed by European Union. It defines data as your basic human right. Now, with that, it says it gives the consumer, whose data it is, certain rights. What those rights are, there are about 6-7 rights. First is access to data. You can go on any website right now for European. If you are a company which has users from the European Union, they can ask you for data. You can ask to remove all of that data, and the company is bound by law to actually remove that data.
Within 30 days?
Within 30 days or 45 days. There are different variations.
And are we sure of it will be removed?
Yes. So the European Union is going to enforce that through regulators and legal processes. You can ask for rectification, meaning if there is a problem in your data and stuff like that. So it gives you those rights. And what it asks is that the companies need to give you an easier way. To your point, as you said, it's very difficult to sift through all of that and links and information. So there has to be forms where you can actually go put your email address, verify yourself, and then that data needs to go. So this is one part of GDPR. The other part is about, you mentioned about breach. Let's say if the breach is done, so let's say if a company has users, 500 million users. So GDPR enforces those companies to actually inform every user in a certain way, in a certain amount of time that, hey, this much of your data was breached and it's in the hands of bad people and stuff like that. So these regulations are coming up. So California recently passed, even the US as a whole hasn't passed anything. It's called CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act.
Yeah.
Okay.
And our neighbors, even in India, they've been working on it. Brazil has been working on it. So I think it's a very great time for Pakistan to actually start thinking about it.
Exactly, and just in connection with that, because we have literally seen a few breaches, in the past as well, where it has been catastrophic for all of those people whose data it was as well. For example, let's talk about Dawn Leaks, or probably talk about WikiLeaks as well, ladies and gentlemen. And it had a larger impact, and there was a change in the kind of people who are actually going to rule over the countries as well. So imagine that that's the kind of impact it's going to have.
Or Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yes, exactly.
Her campaign went down. Sorry.
Yes. So now when we talk about such catastrophic change just by a single breach of the data, how are we going to protect it? How are we going to protect our people? Where is Pakistan on this?
This is a big challenge, Shahzad. Not just for Pakistan, but the entire world.
Yep.
So the entire IT and new technology that sprang up in the last, it's very fast. It's hard for legislators to actually follow up, and for Pakistan, a country like Pakistan, it's even more difficult. But I think the road is hard, but we need to start. I see it as a silver line.
Are we anywhere? Have we started yet?
So no, on privacy, no. Pakistan legislation we lacked. So in 2016, we passed something called the Prevention of Electronic Cybercrime Act, PECA it's called. But that just penalizes bad access to data. It doesn't protect the
It's
privacy.
all right if your phone's ringing. Somebody saw him on television early in the morning and they're calling him that, hey, we can see you on television. Probably after the show, guys.
So, okay, so Talha, while you do wrap up actually this segment with where Pakistan is right now, I just want to add one thing over here. So when we're talking about banking apps, and I'm not talking about the fake people who might pretend to be them, the apps or organizations themselves, how much access to our data do they have?
They have
because
everything,
I think they
Shila.
that's what I'm
they have
saying. So
everything.
like, is it threatening to us?
Yes, I think that's what we've been talking about. So all of that, your virtual self is being created.
Right.
So what are your habits? Where do you go? Who do you meet? What time of duration? So let's say even Netflix, when you play movies, right? They know which scenes you're watching.
Right.
They know how many times you're watching. They know what kind of movies you're watching. So that kind of knowledge, if you stitch together all those pieces, that's pretty heavy. And from banking sector, there are certain different regulations that govern the banking sector. But again, Pakistan is ranked very badly in terms of cybersecurity.
I'm sure.
Yes. So I think there was the global cybersecurity index puts us as 94.
Well, what's the reason behind that?
So I think it's evolution of the system. I think in terms of e-commerce and in terms of education and in terms of acceptance and looking into where the world is headed, we generally lag behind, in probably like in other areas. So here also, we adopted all the technology, we adopted all the devices and everything, but we never looked at the security of those things.
Okay.
So I think that's very important for us to understand. I think it will take time.
Yeah, and I think it's lack of interest of the organizations as well, ladies and gentlemen, because we really do not even bother about it. Imagine that, you order something online in Pakistan and they say that, for example, I ordered this very amazing piano for my daughter and it looked this big probably in the picture. When it came down, it was this big as well. And, I couldn't actually go anywhere to return it. There was no money back guarantee. There was nothing. And we're not even moving in that direction. And that's why there are people who are actually taking advantage of this situation. They're ripping people off of their money as well. Just yesterday, I was in conversation with a friend who said that she's ordered some things online as well, and it was worth 40,000 rupees, and they never got to her place. And they were actually asking whether if we can do something and if we can go to FIA. She even went to FIA. She was like, but I don't think that this is possible. And I told her that, this is possible, and FIA has got everything to probably go after those people, but it's just that whether they're going to go and do it for 40,000 rupees or not. I think that's the question as well. But we really need to move in that direction. But very quickly, one last thing before we wrap up the show as well. What kind of steps do we really need to take to make sure that our data is private on our own, because we do not have any such kind of legislation over here in Pakistan? Number one. Number two, what are you currently doing in Silicon Valley? You had a fantastic startup. Please do let us know about that.
Right.
Yeah, and so sorry, but adding on to that, which one do you think will happen faster or is better for Pakistan to adopt? To make policies or to aware the public about how to safely use the net?
So I think I'll start off with this. I think both things need to go hand in hand. We need to educate the masses. We need to explain what data is. We need to tell people that when you install apps, for example, look at what they're asking for. and then start using. So now, as a Pakistani citizen, we do not. There is no legislation from Pakistan, but Europeans have done that. US has done that.
Okay.
So, but even now, you can go to certain places like Facebook or Google to actually go and ask them to get your data or remove your data.
All right.
So both things need to happen in parallel. I think legislation and laws are the basis of formation in any society. So I think that needs to go hand in hand,
Okay.
first of all. And to your question, Shahzad.
Your startup.
Yeah. So I'm part of a company called Security.ai. We are in the privacy space. We help these bigger companies that we are talking about satisfy the needs of customers and automate the process of giving you your data back.
Okay.
Right.
So,
So in that process, you guys are actually getting a lot of data as well.
Without breaching it, hopefully.
Yeah. No, so we don't save that data on our end. We actually utilize their data and we automate the processes in those companies. So our founder is Rehan Jalil. We started in 2018. We were ranked one of the best security and privacy startups in the last year.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. Congratulations. You're making Pakistan proud as well. But thank you very much, Talha, for being with us. It was lovely to have you. And ladies and gentlemen, I think I've liked to be in conversation with a friend of mine, and not just a friend, but at the same time, just to support him because it was his first ever television interview. His wife is away in the studios as well. I think she liked it. She's actually going to applaud him for the kind of services he's provided for all of you people today so that we can make our data secure, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. And thank you, Talha, for having the patience to answer our basic questions as
We're
well.
just like, hey, you know what?
I know, because we don't understand, and we actually wanted to make it sound very simple for you guys as well, so that you can actually be careful of the type of information that you put on the internet and make it available to, well, for whoever to access it.
Exactly.
So ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're right now headed to a short break, but when we come back, we have something, well, inspiring. What do we have, Shahzad?
A very different form of art, ladies and gentlemen. Not a lot of people are working with it, but yeah, it comes naturally.
It's the new game.
And it definitely came naturally to this kid as well. He's very young, he's vibrant, he's brilliant, and he will be here just in about 2 or 3 minutes. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had well, a good tiny break as well. I hope you got your coffee as well. I refreshed mine here, I promise you that.
Yeah.
So, Shazad, now we're on to the segment where we said it's going to be inspiring, yes.
Yes.
But like, you know, how we said that everything is now on our phones or our tabs, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine when we were school going, in your case in the 90s, in my case in the 2000s, I mean, when it came to drawing period or arts period for that matter, it was all on a sketchbook. And now, well, on the Instagram, I see a lot of amazing, amazing artists coming up, but everything is digital, and it does inspire me, but it also raises so many questions. I mean, how do you get about that?
But you know, before we actually talk about this, I think, you know, because I went to the school in the 90s and you in the 2000s as well.
Wasn't a lighter note.
I think we're still doing the same show, so I think
Yes.
I've been keeping up with my pace as well,
Mashallah.
which is great. But yes, you're very right. You know, the medium of expressing has changed, ladies and gentlemen. When earlier kids, when they used to be young, obviously kids are supposed to be young, but very young, or probably very little as well. It was parents' responsibility to help their kids to actually find a way of expressing how they feel as well. Rather, some would do by punching kids in the school, some would do it by probably just bullying kids in the school as well. Some would come back and just fight with their parents all day long, and they would think, you know, hey, you know what do we really need to do with the kids? So some would go to karate schools, some would go to, you know, a football match, some would go to learn basketball, and some would go to paint. And for all of those kids who actually went for painting at a very early age, ladies and gentlemen, they've really found themselves eventually, and people who've actually went to play basketball, football, whatever hobby they had, obviously they are great players and athletes as well. So what we can expect 10 years or a decade later is a masterpiece of talent.
I can't even think of it right
now. Yes,
now.
is a masterpiece of talent. So today, ladies and gentlemen, over here in the studios, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who happens to be a digital artist. He started with digital art at the age of 14, but he started sketching and painting when he was 4 years old. So imagine the kind of wonderful things he might have done on the sketches, and not just on a sketch, but on a digital sketch as well. Not just that, ladies and gentlemen, he's actually been working with the German embassy and the United Nations as well to make sure that the communities are more resilient, and we do need young, amazing people like him within our own community and societies. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we are very lucky that we've actually been joined by Mr. Syed Arham Kamal. Hello, assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for bringing me on your show. I love the opportunity. I love the opportunity to talk about something I'm so passionate about.
Thank you very much, and it's wonderful to have you here, and it's brilliant to actually have such an amazing, talented kid over here on the show as well, which we want to share your story with the rest of the world as well. So tell us, Arham, about yourself, and when did you started to paint and everything?
Well, I started to paint very early on, like very, very early on, just in school, in my notebooks, in the margins. My teachers hated me for it. My teachers still hate me for it.
Wow.
Just listening to a lecture, just bored. I used to open up my biology notebook and just copy things off of it.
And was it always good, like as a young kid as well?
No. It started off horrible, as everything does. It's all practice.
Okay.
Art is mostly practice, just like everything else.
So did you probably over the period of time realize that, okay, this is going to be my outlet or sort of a catharsis, my expression of how I feel? Is it so?
I didn't really realize it. It just ended up happening. It's just like, it's like brushing your teeth. It's something you do every day, and you become so used to it that it just becomes a part of you, a part of your daily routine.
So do you get like a lot of requests from your friends and family? Arham, mujhe draw karo, ye draw karo.
Constantly. Every time somebody will look at you and you're drawing something, they'll just ask you to draw them.
Have you ever done that?
I've done it a few times. But at a certain point, you just have to say no.
That is
and I think it's important as well, you know, to keep your talent intact, ladies and gentlemen, and your talented integrity intact as well. I think you need to do so as well. But then, you know, there was a time when you actually moved on to the very digital platform or the digital canvas as well. You know, you started doing digital art. Tell us a little about digital art as well. And before you speak about it, I want people to be more aware about it as well, because my niece is actually into digital art, and she comes up with me and she's like, hey, you know what, she'll have her iPad in her hand and she'll be like, hey, bhai mamu, you know, this is something I've made. And I'm like, yeah, you know, you're making it on iPad, you know, what's the point?
You don't consider it?
Yeah, do you get that a lot?
I get that a lot, mostly from the older generation, because people don't tend to understand it. It's like anything else. It's a medium. It's just another way of doing art.
Yes.
I do admit
it
is
requires
easier.
a lot of hard work, though.
Well, he admits that it's a little bit easier, but then there are techniques into it, right?
Oh no, it's harder, it's very difficult to get into because you have to know what everything does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Arham, what we're going to do is actually we're going to put some of your pictures on the screen. You let us know what this is, or, I mean, what made you draw this, or probably the techniques as well.
Yeah, and before we do that, this is one thing which I wanted to say as well, and I wanted to ask you, when I was a kid, I love cars, I love bikes, I love horses, so these are the things which I used to draw. And this is what, usually whatever you're influenced by, you do end up drawing that as well.
True.
So is that right with you? Is that the case?
Oh, 100%.
So which is why we're going to share the images and we're going to ask you actually what were you thinking when you made these pictures. So and do we call, when we talk about digital art, do we call it drawing or do we call it creating?
It's both.
It's both.
It's
Right.
both. Okay, wonderful. Please, let's go. Let's take a look, ladies and gentlemen, at these amazing pieces created by Mr. Arham. Go ahead.
Nice.
And what were you thinking when you made these?
Well, okay, this one, to be frank, was an artist study I did for school.
Okay. I
So
like the eyebrows.
the eyebrows.
Everything actually, but eyebrows.
Next one, please. Ooh,
Nice.
a lot of eyes.
Arham, you also have like a good eye for colors and contrasts,
Yes.
which is, of course, I mean, what artists do.
It looks like a picture from the previous one from GTA 5.
Why don't you
cover as
talk?
well.
Why don't you
Yes.
talk and
Yeah.
let us know?
This one, I absolutely adore the way this one came
It's
out.
brilliant. Brilliant.
It's very.
Do you
it-
trace or do you like draw from scratch?
Look at this one. Yeah,
It,
look at
it
this
changes from piece to piece.
Okay.
Like this one was drawn from scratch.
Brilliant.
And you can tell in the ending because this one looks a little more stylized, a little less realistic.
True. But it's very nice.
Tracing is not something anybody should really be ashamed of, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Some people look down on it, but everybody has to start somewhere.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. And
And
tracing
it's
is
a
hard
ve-
as
and
well,
it's
to
a-
be honest.
It's a very good way to increase your skill.
What about this one?
This one,
Is this something to do with ADHD? Looks like it.
this one has something to do with ADD, yeah, in general, or just the disposition of most people nowadays. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of voices just coming from all around you, and sometimes it just becomes a little much.
So is it literally you expressing yourself?
Yeah, generally.
Generally, and then when you-
it's an outlet for me.
Wow, and it's wonderful, and I think that everybody in today's age and time needs to have an outlet, and I think that this is very healthy as well, rather than going else or going somewhere out and sharing it with your friends because they're somebody else's friends as well. So I think it's better to keep it to yourself and express it whatever you have in your mind and your way as well.
Well, in my opinion, is if you're good enough at something, people will come to you.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true. But Arham, what are you studying? Like, do you have some majors that you're studying right now?
I am in A-levels right now, and
Okay.
I'm currently aiming for a law degree.
Amazing. So you aspire to be a lawyer along, of course, this is something that you'll carry you with
This
for
is
the rest
something
of
that I will definitely carry on.
But you don't want to professionalize it?
I would love to professionalize it, but in my opinion, like acting or anything, professionalizing art is something that takes a lot of time and a lot of work.
Yes.
You have to build a community around you that thinks you're good enough that they're going to give you their money to look at it, and that's hard to do. That's hard to make people give you money.
But just
But you'll get there, mashallah.
yeah,
Brilliant.
but just because I might be 1.5 decades older than you, or probably 2 decades older than you as well. Let's get the stigma away first of all, because I've shared this incident with you that my niece came up to me and she
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, you know what? My mom made this." And I was like, "Hey, you know what? I mean, you've done it on iPad. I think probably anybody can do it on iPad, but it looks like as if this is not the case. So we really need to make people understand that this is an art form and it takes a lot of effort to make what you've actually witnessed on your screens. So how do we make sure that it is as we take contemporary art?
There's no real difference between contemporary art and digital art. It's just a different medium, like watercolors are or acrylics are, and like oil paints are.
But I think a stylus requires more precision than a pen does up on paper.
But is it really a stylus or is it just the finger?
It depends what you have available to you.
Okay,
Really?
both can
because
work.
both can work. It depends on your setup because people with an iPad and an Apple Pencil will
Yeah.
have a pen. People on their phones will just scribble with their finger. I do whatever's available.
Wow, that's wonderful. But coming back to my question,
Yeah.
so how do you think that we kind of make sure that people understand it this way? Because, for contemporary art, we have seen people buying paintings for worth millions of dollars as well. Whereas when we talk about digital art, I haven't really heard any story as of yet that any of the digital art pieces were sold of millions of dollars.
That's not true. Actually, digital art as a profession will make you a lot more money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because graphic designers and like artists, most media you see on billboards,
Yep.
this is all done digitally. mainly because digital is a lot easier to do and it's a lot easier to convert into our digital world.
Yeah.
Right. But I have a question. Maybe you cannot answer this as a
But I
student.
have
want
something
you
in
to answer
connection.
as well.
Yeah, I have something in connection, then we can move on to that
Okay.
as well. Now imagine that I bought a painting off the shelf, you know, I went to an artist and it's still hanging in my drawing room or probably in my room as well. What am I going to do with a picture which I bought from an iPad?
Print it?
Same thing.
Say that.
Print it
what's the
and
difference?
then put it over there,
In-
or
in
probably
fact-
have a bigger iPad
Yeah.
and just hang it there.
In fact, with an iPad thing, it's slightly easier because considering you can have multiples of it. It's a lot more accessible. It's actually, and while it won't sell for millions of dollars, who has millions of dollars to spend on art?
Whoa.
Art, in my opinion,
Art,
is
love
But I'm
it.
going to
something
agree
that's
to you.
supposed to be very accessible
Yeah,
to people.
I'm going to
That's
agree
true.
to you on this as well, because I never came across this idea that, hey, you know what, you print it, you know, you
Yeah.
get a good printer and you hang it, you know, so it's good as well.
If you want the cloth, if you want the canvas,
to
you can
agree
do
to
that too.
Wow.
You have more options,
and it'll
right?
be just as beautiful to look at as any other piece.
Yes.
Which brings
And
me
it
to
would have the same amount of effort.
And that's true.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to agree to this one, and I think that people are going to get what I was actually trying to convey, that, hey, this is the
Yes.
new form of art, and it is created by people. It takes a lot of effort. They conceptualize it, and they make sure that they draw it. So even if they're drawing it in an iPad, I think that it's pretty much all right to get it printed with a
Right.
good printer and just hang it wherever you want to hang it.
But you know, my next question actually is in line with that. So do you know Portia de Rossi, an Australian actress? So she started a venture of her own where she has an online art gallery. So you as an artist, and anyone as an artist can go there, if she likes it, of course, she'll buy your stuff off you. And for example, so my question is, it won't be rare. So I mean, imagine one Van Gogh probably residing in my living room. I wish though. No one else in the world would have it because it's rare. But through that art gallery, a lot of people would be able to buy the original product, of course. But what about the rarity? Do you think it's a good idea, first of all? You can, of course, disagree with me.
Yeah, because there can be so many copies of the.
That's what I'm saying. I don't like the idea.
There can be, but the issue is that you're the one with the file. You're the one that gets to control how it's distributed.
Yes.
And if you want to
No,
make
you
something
sell it to
rare,
the-
Yeah.
you sell it
it's
to the-
really simple to make it rare. Just don't sell it again.
That is true
No,
as well.
but imagine that, for example, you've sold one piece to me. And what if I've been sharing it with all my family members, and then eventually you one
But
day.
then you're the one who didn't make it rare.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
true. That is
Yes.
true.
I already have the money.
I like it.
Okay, I think that's fair enough as well. But yes, I think talking about this, we really need to relate it with the first segment where we were in conversation with Mr. Tala, and he said that, you know, we really do not have such legislation in place as well. So I think even for art, we really need to have such legislation in place, because we talk about piracy, and Pakistan being one of those countries where piracy is very common. I think we need to think about this as well.
100%. Art theft is such an issue, especially with digital art. Anything that you put on there, you can go to like Amazon or Redbubble or like
Yep.
any of these like websites, and you'll just find a T-shirt with it. And they'll be selling it for like $50–60, and that's a lot of money that I could be making that I'm not
Do
making.
you think it's important for
It
you,
is-
an artist, to put on like your watermark or something?
It is, I sign every piece,
Okay.
but that's not enough most of the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because people will just take a screenshot, and they have Photoshop as well. I have Photoshop, they have Photoshop.
They edit it out.
Yeah.
They just edit it out, and it's such a huge issue. It takes away from people's livelihoods, it takes away from people's passions,
True,
and it's a
true.
lot of effort that's just stolen. It's like taking the Mona Lisa and just taking a picture of it and putting it on a
Yeah, I mean,
T-shirt and selling it. People
I've-
do that, but it's not good.
Yeah, I've even seen Mr. Bean's face on Mona Lisa's picture as well. So imagine, you know, people have been doing a lot of things, ladies and gentlemen, recently. Imagine, I told you earlier in the morning as well, when we started off with the show, that somebody took my face and put it on a lady's body.
Yeah, and I saw it, and he was looking so beautiful.
And I wasn't really very happy about it. Imagine, you know, a lady with a beard and long hair, and yeah, but it did remind me of good times when I used to have a lot of hair as well. But that's wonderful, and I don't think that any artist would mind as much as their art is out there. You know, obviously, if you have been paid that particular amount of money which you wanted for that particular piece, I think it's just you getting more knowable.
No, in my opinion, it's a huge issue. People say stuff like exposure, but when you're doing pieces for other people, when you're selling pieces to clients,
Yeah.
and then they just steal that and they use it unlicensed, you own that patent. It's your thing.
Exactly.
And if they just take it and they use it, that's a lot of revenue that you could be making if you're doing professionally.
Absolutely.
That is hundreds and thousands of dollars that you could be making, or that they're making, or they're making like millions of dollars off of you without giving you anything. It's a huge issue.
It is.
That a lot of these like websites that sell these things, like Amazon and stuff, they don't really take it into account well enough.
Wow.
I think cyber ethics is one thing.
And there's only so much one person can do to enforce the copyright.
Exactly. Just one last thing before we wrap up. It was wonderful to have you as well, and that is that, I've seen a lot of artists and they have their own niche. Some would work on cubes, some would work on squares, some would work on, whatever they feel like. First of all, what is your signature pickup on that as well? And towards the end, where do you see yourself in the next 15 to 20 years as an artist, as a digital artist?
Okay. My niche, I would describe, my niche keeps changing. It keeps evolving as any good art should.
Wonderful.
It keeps growing. At the moment, I'm focusing on very like heavy blacks and very deep, deep pictures that are meant to display a lot of emotion.
Got it.
And so it's not really consistent, but it never should be consistent.
But it's a good thing, right?
If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. That's my.
Where do you see yourself as a digital artist the next 10 to 15 years?
In the next 50 years.
15.
15. In the next 15 years.
50, I'm not sure whether I'll be around or not. So probably I thought 15 was enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, hopefully I will have gotten enough of a following. I wish I could like get an art book, get deals with magazines. I'm looking for that type of those types of opportunities. Galleries, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
If ever.
And that's wonderful. And we would want you to be there as well. And we'll pray for you. But thank you very much, Aram, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation.
Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Thank you very much.
And I'm pretty sure that you are an inspiration to a lot of people who are watching right now. A lot of people, even at my age, who still don't know how to go about digital drawing. This is amazing, and I think it's very, I just know the basics. Yeah. But I think it's very important to have an outlet, an expression, right? And people have different methods, and this one happens to be, well, again, something, fruitful for the person doing it. Yeah. And for you, Arham, I don't think you need our prayers. MashaAllah, your work speaks for itself. It's absolutely brilliant in the future. Well, the future belongs to you and everyone working in the digital industry as well. Yes. But ladies and gentlemen, we're heading into a weekend. I hope you guys have an amazing one. We'll ask you how it was on Monday, or maybe you can write to us to let us know through our social media pages, of course. On Facebook with the name of
World This Morning.
On Twitter?
On Twitter, it's World This Morning without G.
On YouTube?
On YouTube, you have to look for PTV World, and then the most viewed show on PTV World is World This Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Shukar alhamdulillah.
Yeah, and the repeat of this show you can catch.
And the repeat will be at 5 past midnight, ladies and gentlemen. Till the next time, look after yourselves. We hope that everybody out there and around you is going to be safe and sound. And please make sure that you be a good neighbor, not just today, but almost every single day as well. Absolutely. Look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning.
Stay safe.